thank you so much for being back on our podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure.
I had no choice. I had to.
Ahmed, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you. The last time was very eye-opening. The interactions with you really have expanded my horizon of thinking, because I was thinking of myself as a somewhat successful person in their own realm, but being taken out by you to certain places in Dubai, being here in the surrounding, there's a lot more to achieve in life.
Sitting and sitting.
So important. And what I found interesting, we had a few clips on TikTok which went viral. One of them got over 1 million views. And people are very quick to judge you by your appearance.
It's fun.
Yes.
So much fun.
And you do it on purpose. So I'm very curious. Maybe you can give the audience like a small recap of how you made your money, how you became successful. Because one of the most popular comments was Arab money, all money, he has a rich family, he didn't have to work. So what's the comment to that?
Okay. So, I'm not supposed to be understood or liked by everybody. So it's gonna be literally waste of a lot of time and energy for me to try to explain myself. There's a couple there. Which one?
The Bugatti.
The other side trailer. The other one. Okay, so back to the topic. So not supposed to be liked and listened to by everybody. People are gonna decide who you are immediately for a second, because that's where they come from. Okay, so how I became what I became. So I'm entrepreneur of the year, in my business of the year, CEO of the year, and then games with the order for the largest creator what the fuck in the world. So that's like the big board ones. So I made my first layer of money by basically creating and creating water parks around the world. I have 32 locations around the world between Dubai, Tunisia, Maghreb, Serbia, Egypt model. Some are seasonal, some are all year. And then I took all the money from there and invested in tech and capital in the beginning 2 years ago, and made some good money. And then from there, I started investing reached the source. So that's how I made my money, maintained it, and grew it. Ultimate.
And it didn't come easy, right?
Oh, no. So I don't come from, like, my family just said normal mid family. Oh, but family in the Arab world is not your home, is that poor. I'm not going to be competing with you because your life is shit. Or that your life has been hard. Everybody have a different journey, different hardships, we all differently. But, my growing up was a very basic on the family, like a crazy, one low apartment, nothing big houses in the house. I had good jobs before in my life, but then I switched to become my own businessman. That's when everything you learn, you have to unlearn to relearn actually how life is. And throughout like 11 years of that decade or more that I've been doing my business, I was bankrupt twice and sued 18 times. But now I'm the biggest operator in the world. So it's that journey of these things. And I was like, yeah, it did happen. Yeah, but there was times that, I was living on $500 over a month. I had to figure out how to do this, to do this. I'm going to choose to go here, to go here, because I have enough money petrol. That was a part of the journey. But it's not one thing. It was, I think, a lot of things. And I think the genius thing that got me where I am here is I think it's just one thing. And I'm quitting, no matter how crazy it is.
How important was spirituality or religion throughout those dark times, and maybe even in the better times, right?
It's important in both times. I always had very strong faith. A Muslim, I had very strong faith in Allah. And I knew very early that, okay, this is part of the journey. Because you have to respect the journey and the process. And most people want you just to get there. No. It's not just prayer. You gotta put the work, and the prayer supports that. And what I'm looking for people are to step down and just pray for it. It's not gonna happen to you, but you need more than that.
And from the conversations I had with a few different people, I found that Islam is a very masculine religion. And I don't mean this in the context where it's putting down women, because it's
provided for women. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Being a man means you gotta provide, you gotta protect, you gotta take care of everybody. Not just like being a stronger, that I'm oppressing you. That's like ridiculous.
So it's also a religion which holds you accountable, right? Because you can't just go about it and expect good things to happen.
See, the religion is a good gives you a good moral compass about what's right and what's wrong. And you have this accountability by that. That's number one. Yes, important. Culture is also very important. Your circle is also very important. And then that unconscious just keep telling yourself the lies, keep telling yourself that I'm shit, I'm bad, I'm fat, I'm not good, or I'm good at this, I'm amazing at this. So it's all these 4 things collaboratively can make who you are.
So you mentioned this in the last podcast as well. You said the lies you're telling yourself, they most likely become true. So why not tell yourself something positive? Can you talk more about the power of the mind?
Amazing. So there's this thing that's called the unconscious suggestion. So you tell yourself, because what you keep saying, you start seeing. So in a way, I mean, okay, so if you keep saying yourself that, well, I'm bad, I'm horrible, I'm a mistake, I'm afraid of all those, that's what you're going to be. You can actually wake up with lights on, like, no, you need to give a different combination of yourself. So be kind, be compassionate, be love to yourself. I look at it this way. You need to reparent yourself. So you look at yourself talk to yourself as if you're firstborn. And then reparent that firstborn, yourself. So when you reparent yourself, you reprogram yourself towards becoming a better person.
It's very interesting that you say this, because what I found, a lot of people, they indulge in self-sabotaging activities where somehow they think so badly about themselves that they think they don't even deserve, a lot of wealth. They don't deserve a loving wife.
But that's not the people. I just say that suggestion, keep telling yourself that you're not worthy, you're not good, you're bad. You need to stop, because we can't be in war with yourself and the world. That is just, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Like, I always ask, people always tell me I'm my worst critic. Why? You have the work to do that for you. Why are you doing it to yourself? You're supposed to be a best friend, but I cannot do this. Then you prepare. That's you, because wherever you tell yourself, you're right. If you think you can, you're right. If you think you're wrong, you're right. I can't change that. I tell you change the conversation between you and yourself.
How do you go deep into your subconscious to actually figure out which battles you're fighting internally? Because even at your level, there's probably things.
So much.
Okay, so give me an example.
Again, like, I look at it and because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. It's okay sometimes to fall, do a mistake, get up. It's the macro, what am I doing? Sometimes, the macro stuff, it does not work, but then it's always a sign from the universe, God, that's not the way, pivot. Or you don't have the right tools, learn the tools first, understand this, and they'll do that. So I think being kind to yourself is very, very important. Don't take it too serious, because nobody cares, it's only you. The things that it's the end of the world, because really, guess what? The world's this big, the things still going on. It's just your perception towards what happened is the worst thing that happens to you.
Do you think you have to love yourself before you can expect someone else to love you?
Absolutely. Because again, it's called self-respect, self-awareness, self-love. It's a self thing. It's not like no matter how many items or things or material or people or money will make that work. Need to work within yourself again. So I love myself. Keep saying it. But I'm good. It's okay. It happens. Don't look at it that way.
And what comes first when you start a relationship with someone? Does that person have to respect you first, or are they going to love you first?
So, in love for a man is respect. So, if I'm not respected by the person I'm going to be with, then it's not over anywhere. Because when you respect me, you can give me the authority for me to lead you. Because I have to show you for myself the value of why you should be unrespected. And so I create my own value, my own person. So you can't be respected for this existing. No. Create your value as a man. Work hard, do your stuff. You will have high standards, have these things in your life. Become that individual that you be respected for that. And there comes ultimately together. But if the respect is not there, it's going to work at all.
So if someone has an average relationship right now, and they might not be as respected by their wife or by their children as they would wish it to be, how do they go about changing that perspective? What are some tangible, actionable steps which you can take as a man to become someone who deserves more respect? Because you can't go to your wife and tell her, hey, you have to respect me.
No, you gotta show her about it. You can't just, there's certain things you don't see your lies, you know your lies. So you gotta give her that. So it's an important dynamic and important communication that you have to have with that partner you have in their life. And you always have to go to the root of where you are messing up. You just have to be accountable. Like, own your mistake. I'm not doing enough. Do enough. You know where you messed up. You know where you're doing. You know where you're lacking. So either you, accept that, be accountable toward that, and then work through it. Because nothing's impossible. Doing one job, a shared job. Don't compare about the latest shift because you have one job. You have more time in your day. Sometimes get a second job, get a side hustle, start learn new things, you get in the right networks of people. There's so many ways to make money right now. It's ridiculous. Give me a laptop or a phone and give me 6 months and make $1 million.
Yeah.
You can do this to any e-commerce thing. So many ways. I don't know nothing. Learn. YouTube is there, Google is there. There's no excuse. There's in your phone right now, the whole humanity's knowledge is in your hand. And you're just being lazy, scrolling down.
And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you don't have to be super successful already to garner respect from other people.
No.
I think a lot of people just respect you for actually trying.
Because that's how they see it. A lot of us say like, no, try. Because most people are afraid to even try because they're afraid to fail, because they're afraid to go back and say, oh my God, I did wrong. Try, man. Or if it didn't work out, so what? Keep trying. Did you get what you want? Because see, the difference between losing and learning is one thing. It's stopping. So if you continue going, you're learning. If you stop, then you lost. So that's different. Just keep going.
And there's also, you have that part, right? The government, depending on where you are residing at the moment, the government doesn't always make it easy for you to try things because there's always repercussions, right? So let's say you drop out of your job and you try something as an entrepreneur, you might end up with debt, or you might make a bad move and you might end up in a lawsuit, right? So there's always risks associated with that in the real world, but then there's also emotional risks attached to that as well, where you try something and then it fails. Now you maybe have some money to pay back, or you might have to go out back to a job, find a job, but you have the socio-economic environment where your friends are going to view you in a certain light, right? Because you tried and then you failed. So now what do you, how can you balance not giving up with being delusional about what you're doing? Because you might not give up by doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. So, because I've been through all these, I've been in big time plates, I've been in lawsuits, where I started my business and where it is right now was two different dramatic things. So, learning where to pivot, learning actually to ask for help is a very big thing. Because there's this thing about, like, we call it the founder syndrome. It's like, you think you know best. It's like, yes, possibly you do, but you got wrong. I think the only way I managed to get up of all this, mishaps that happen to me in my life is by asking how the right people who are much better than me, much smarter than me, and I figure out ways for them to help me, and then, get me out of that run by being coached by people who knows better. I don't know about everything, but now, I've learned that, okay, I need to have people in my team that are much better, much smarter than, that I have trust for. Because the first thing you find in somebody is have somebody that you can trust enough that they can take this task from you and you don't have to worry about anything. So, to come back to that point, I think a very important part of it is this delusional thing is, again, like for the I was doing, I was obsessed. People say you're delusional. How you gonna put a water park in the water? Maybe you want to the water. Because I saw that it's gonna work because I understood the emotional aspect of it. Like I understood what it takes for me, the emotion to connect with the end customer. But to reach that end customer, to convince the landlords or the government to really get that was hard. And all your markets say, yeah, I know I was born here and so on. It's an amazing country. But still I had to work really hard to get these locations and convince them and get them to accept my proposal and so on and so on.
Would you almost equal that to a conquest where, nothing in the world is just given to you, right? You have to go out there and conquer. But
yeah, that's what people, it's just mind blowing for me. People just feel they are entitled because they are born to be given things. No, it doesn't happen that way. That's why there's very few millionaires, and a bit more millionaires than there's a lot of, because if you don't put the work, it's not an overnight success. All you have this life. That was me 11 years working non-stop. Me having luxury now to be sitting down and talk about this, it's a process. And of course, it's a 2 L's or 2 W's. So you lose and then you learn. And when you put two L's together, it's a W. So you start winning. And when you win, you become wise.
Yes.
But that's the thing. People don't want to go through the loser part. It's painful. Yeah, it's painful. And what's the problem with that? Do you want to have this? Yeah, then you gotta go through it.
It's the same like going to the gym, right? It has to be painful, otherwise you're not going to spark growth.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Do you think that type of conquest and having that endurance for pain or tolerance for pain, is that part of the definition of being a man?
Yes. Because like for I think 15 years, I was a very competitive athlete. So I knew what it takes, okay, to do this, to compete at a high level, to go through the workout, the cardio, the diets, and, you know, the injuries and so on, so on, to go through that. And it's a very mental game. You know, you become a champion a year before because you see yourself becoming a champion. It's not on the right. You know, I saw me getting the Guinness World Record a year before that. I saw me being in that penthouse or in this place a long time before it happened. So the visualization part is extremely important. You don't just visualize the element. No, I always said, like, you have to visualize, okay, I'm driving, for example, a red dawn. I'm going to be playing this music. I'm going to have that person next to me. This is how it's going to feel, or my imaginary hair. You know, you need to feel the emotion of that for you to get it.
Yes.
So I don't say I'm going to be having a private jet. It's like, okay, what kind of jet? What type? What's the color interior? But I'm going to be doing this, is okay, what kind?
Do you think it's also a viable tool to actually get in touch with those luxury goods, experiences, and so on? You know, do you think it makes sense to rent? I mean, we're surrounded by supercars, right? Do you think it makes sense to rent a supercar for one day to actually know how it feels like to drive one?
Yeah, because, like, you know, very good example. You know, when, you know, I always tell people, hey, get a business class. Have the experience. Because when you touch that experience, then you will never understand a simple market coach. So you keep putting yourself in that hustle or push more that you don't want. Like we put ourselves today in this room with $70 million worth of cost. Because it's important energy to understand, and this is just obtainable. It's just arm reach. You just need to be able to put this stuff in, like, yeah, this is not part of league. I can just do steps, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 100 steps, and be there. Overall. Have you sure that multiples of ones to be a millionaire?
No.
Let's do this one. It's very awesome. I did it once before with my friend Bracky, and we talk about this. So I'm gonna do, and you're gonna do 2, 3, 4. So every time, if you doubled,
with the numbers. Yeah. Okay.
Let's see if you get this one. So 1, so here's 1.
Yes.
2, 3.
Yes.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. It's 20 steps to be a millionaire. If you just double up your money every single day, it's 21 days.
Yeah,
if you
do the math, becoming a millionaire is actually not
that hard.
That big of a milestone, right?
It's not that hard.
Yes.
But you will never get over a double.
Yes.
Because you capped. But the whole thing, being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. This is not a walk in the park. People do it, I want to be an entrepreneur or a CEO, you just want a title. Okay, but you understand you gotta work your hours. Like, I still remember I used to leave my office at 4 o'clock in the morning, 60 hours and get up again and continue going again. I still remember this very well. I would leave the office with a car in the back, and it's like, I asked, who's this? Because I can't understand somebody outworking me. And to be honest, this guy is not profits there, don't worry about it.
You don't have to be the smartest.
No.
You just have to make sure you're always dipping into all the potential which you have, and just make sure you outwork. You don't have to outwork everyone, right? Because there's a few crazy people like Elon Musk who are not just outworking everyone, but they're also hyper intelligent. But if you outwork 99% of people, guess what? You're going to end up in that 1%. Right?
Yeah, but most people are actually lazy. Just because you're working hard doesn't mean you make anything. You know, because, you know, you have the waiter, that's them, they work hard, but they're not making the most money. It's about working smart.
So what do you think is the minimum threshold for you to consider yourself financially free? Because I think just being a 1-digit millionaire, I don't think that's enough anymore. with inflation? What do you think? How much money do you need to have liquid in the bank for you to consider yourself?
Bank is not liquid because like sometimes you can't withdraw them.
Very true. And if you want to go down,
Yeah. So like, my opinion is that it's very hard. Because again, it's all about lifestyle, because some people can live very good with $500,000 and some people can't live very good for at least $500,000. But financial freedom is for you to be able to, whenever you want to go anywhere, you can do that. You don't have to be restrained by ties, states, or government. But being able to have everything taken care of. Because of what you need to take care of. Most for all, my rent, my expenses, my this is like, yeah. What else? Personally speaking, again, is then my toleration is different. So I think $15 to $25 million is a good base.
And what do you think if shit hits the fan, right? You need to be nimble. So you need to, you can't have those, because your net worth can be calculated in a variety of different ways. I don't think it makes sense to have a lot of your net worth in an asset which is illiquid, like real estate or in cars. Or how do you think about staying nimble in this environment?
Very good. So bunch of things. Watches is a very good way because you can store like $500 million in a watch. That's a good way to move around. Obviously, crypto, stablecoins is a very good way to move around. Cash on hand is always good to move around with. I agree with the whole assets, stable, you can't move them. It's a big problem. But there's a long term and there's a short term. So there's different, again, I have a very, very specific way of doing things at this context to other people.
And you also picked, I know you've been born here, but you picked, or you chose to stay in Dubai for many different reasons, I think. Can you elaborate why you don't see any need for you to, I'm making some maybe ridiculous examples for you, but why don't you feel the need to move into the US, for example, or into Europe or to any of those countries and states?
Whole list. One, tax. That's a big thing. Like, I don't understand in the places of America they pay 30+% for taxation. But for me, it doesn't make sense to me. Tax, lifestyle, she is amazing. It's very safe. It can lead to cause a local money asylum that never hurt you. The potential opportunity was everybody comes here, so you have access to a lot of people with a lot of different, mostly positive energy that you can get things that fast. So you're more central, so you have to go around. Within 4 hours, I can see a lot of countries within this part of the world. So this is just a few examples. We particularly were very, very stable. Government here rules are very regularly doing. So our basket is the number one in the world. So all these aspects makes it very attractive. Like, yes, I will have hope like small homes everywhere around the world for vacation, but home is always Dubai.
And what do you see does the government in Dubai do differently than the governments in the Western world?
Fast. They attack things very fast. Like, this is one of the very few monarchy-based countries in the world that actually works. Which makes things, because decision making is much faster. Creating the laws and rules that helps elevate the lifestyle of people are extremely fast. Having enough control over people for the life to become basically good for everybody. So respect and tolerance is huge here. Yeah, you want a club, you want to play, you want to go to church, you want to let's do that and respect the others. If you don't, there's laws that are very strong for you to be respected.
Do you think the city would work just as well if religion wouldn't play such a big part in it?
See, the religion is not the only factor. It's there, it's a Muslim country, it's also there, it's a culture, it's also, but it's that like, okay, you're Christian, you are Jewish, you are a Hindu, you whatever it is, you can exist in your own pocket, but then disturb others. So here we don't have this, we don't talk about politics, we don't talk about religion, public, there's no need to do that. It's your personal choice, do it. But you don't have to be in my face, hey, you got to believe in Allah. Yeah, do you? But don't come to me and try to change it.
Do you think that feminism from the US will ever pollute the mindsets of the people in Dubai?
For example, when you go to government, any government, a company in Dubai, a New Year, basically. There is a line for women only. This is why give me a line, because I'm respecting you as a woman. I'm giving a woman to talk to you. They have a hard time understanding that. I'm giving you as a woman a respect. If I go to an elevator, for example, when there's two other women in the elevator, either I let them go, or I will take a corner far away into their own space. It's a respect. I think that's better than having your own equal ways for you to create your own money, and then you have a hard time making the depends mean, and you work hard because you have to pay your rent, you have to pay your fees. Like, this part of the world, me as a man, I take care of it. My job, my duty as a man is to provide for you.
What do you say to a woman who tells you, oh, I don't want you to take care of me, I want to be independent, I can be my own boss?
You can be single. You can't be single. But again, that's the whole thing. This is like the biggest lie that have been lied to women. Like, but you have, independence, so cool. Be independent. I'm not like holding you down. But understand that you do not have to be that. If I tell you as a woman, okay, you don't have to pay rent, you don't have to worry about paying any of your bills, you have your own pocket money, you have your own things you can do there. Would you still go and work hard? No, you won't. You love that. You want to stay home. Like, I don't understand, like, you're okay working for some other idiot who doesn't care about your feeling and emotions, and work all these hours, and you have no days off, you have to ask for days off, and you have a problem being, take care of your man, cook him food, rub his feet if he's taking care of you, so on. I don't understand this mixed.
Because you're dependent either way, right? Yeah. Either you're going to be dependent on your boss and on a job, or you're going to be dependent on your man. Achieving that real independence, that's super difficult to achieve, because that really means, okay, now you're going to become an entrepreneur, and now you're going to go on a conquest. But then we go back a couple hundred years, going on conquest, that's really something which has been done by men. Yeah. So if you choose to go on a conquest as a woman, I don't think that's really going to be very natural for you. And I also don't think it's going to benefit your character building.
No, it's not. And also, again, like, the thing is this, like, being at home or raising children is a lot of work. It's not an easy job. It's actually harder than the actual job. I've seen it through a lot of people I know that raising children is not easy. Ordering a household is not easy. Again, if the man is working hard and he's provided, again, I'm talking about my formula. I don't know about other men, my formula, I'm doing that. But if you need to have a normally 9-to-5 job, you need to break even and make a simple life, fine, do that. But it shouldn't be the other way.
And I think in Arabic, you don't have the word housewife. I think it translates very differently. Someone told me it's called queen of the house.
Yeah, because you are a queen. This is your kingdom. Like the name of my mother and my father's, her name is my first lady. But that is me. Because again, women in our life, like you can never tell the Arabic, you can never swear at anybody who's Arabic with wisdom at their mouth. You actually have a death wish. Because you don't joke about moms. We do that. We don't have this Yolama jokes here. You're going to get blood in the face. We do not have, because we have so much respect to our women, our mothers, that this is unacceptable.
So let me ask you maybe subjective, maybe slightly controversial question, but do you think the women here, the traditionally raised women and women in traditional relationships, do you think they are more happy than the independent, strong women in the West?
I cannot answer for them, but I think the best way is to ask a woman who is, tradition here, and she had a map to take care of her, and she had a family, and she had kids, she happy with that stuff. Because again, what's the idea? 50 years old with 2 cats, visible with 2 Gucci bags. I remember, before my grandma died, like this one woman, she had 9 kids, and those kids, each one of them had 4 or 5 kids. And every weekend, every Friday, we go to the grandma's house, and there's 30, 40 kids, people in that room that care for that woman, in that image of love that you care for her, And now you have women who are 35 and I'm going to wait till I'm 30, 35 to have kids. Like, insane. We just miss the whole process of being, because you don't understand what love is until you have your own kid. You can love anything, your dog, your cat, your friends, and so on, but you never understand what actual unconditional love is to have your own child in your arms.
Is this the only unconditional love? Do you think the love you have for your partner can also be unconditional?
Every other relationship in life is conditional. Relationship with you and God is conditional. Between me and you as a friend is conditional. Between me and a partner, it's conditional. It's conditions for me to be with you. You break these conditions, it's not going to work out.
And I believe in Islam you also have the way a relationship is established. You almost, or maybe you do so, you set up a contract, or you set at least up expectations which you have from the other person. Can you elaborate a little bit on this?
Because, for example, in the marriage certificate here, it will say, it's like, I will give you this, I will take care of this, I will do this for you. If I fail these things and didn't get asked for divorce, you get this. So there's all breakdown to that. That's the first step. But also, it's very important as an adult, as a mature and a human, to speak, hey, I'm as a man, I want to do well to achieve for fact. I want to be loved this way. I want to be touched this way. And what do you want from me? I want to know what you want. Tell me what you want. How you want to love you. Is it by touching you too much, by talking to you, by giving you extra time? Everybody have different language of receiving love and giving love. Let me understand what you tell me what you want. You should find out, no. I want to give you what you want. So tell me what you want so I can make you happy and fast. So me experimenting and failing and doing some shit.
The caveat to that, I think, is that here it's different, right? But
yes.
I think in the Western world, women don't really know what they actually want because they get taught by the media, this is what you want. And it goes against their nature. So now they are torn because they get told by media, this is what you want. But then intrinsically they feel, oh, I want this. Now you have that dissonance, which I think makes a lot of people incredibly unhappy. And I think that's also why you see the rise of depression, for example, because like you're getting pulled out of what's natural to you and you get told this is what you need and this is what you want. And then you strive for it and then you end up 35, 40, 50 and you realize, damn, I'm completely unfulfilled. What I want is actually here. But now going back and realizing, and you're running out of time as well.
Yeah. Because it's a very bad point because, you allow the exterior to tell you what you should feel with themselves. Like women have very powerful powers called intuition. Their gut feeling is very powerful, but for some reason it's been subconsciously been dumbed down more and more. They know it's bad and they still go through it because, it's been justified through a media or something that's also and make it normal. That there are sort of TV shows, maybe it's like what is going on in the world. It's basically this moms, cougars. It's a reality show, and then they get kids, like boys who are 20 years old. But the plot twist is there's 10 women, and the kids are actually the other women's sons. So imagine you're the mother. It's like, and they're normalizing these things.
Yeah.
For it to be normal. And it's like, no, that is not right. That's not normal. And nobody's speaking up because they're afraid to be cast, supposedly. They're afraid to put their opinion because it's wrong. It's like, no, that is just wrong. That's because everybody's doing wrong, it means it's right.
And you can actually see that if you compare the different audiences, those women who are fighting the strongest for feminism, they don't look too happy.
No, they're not happy. They're not happy. I remember when I had a lot of podcasts and I spoke about like, I expect more to give me this what's navigation. It's like you're a mad child, you are insecure. It's like no. If I am gonna be a man and provide to you, make sure nothing you have to worry about in life. The house and your bills, the shopping, the traveling, nothing is ever near for you. How hard is it for you to give us some words or to care me as a man? Because you're supposed to be a woman. You're supposed to be the person to be able to nurture and grow and give me a separate. It's like, that's what you're thinking. That's what you will do. It's simple.
It's also interesting because the feminists usually are the least feminine women.
Yeah.
So how does that work out? Something which is actually supposed to fight for the feminine side of humanity ends up to be actually really masculine in the way it's conducted.
But that's purely in the West. So like I have this rule that anybody German into the West, I won't talk to them anymore. Because like that's it. They've been indoctrinated so long that like you need to have equality. You have to focus on your career and your job is more important than having a man. But the purpose behind it, if you step back, is purely for money. Because now we can taxi.
Yes.
We can make more money for me. And we have a less of a family unit. Guess what happened? You know, like I saw this thing about like a woman wants to have kids, but they want to be independent, but they want to be rich and so on. So you want to have a kid, but you don't have a man, but you want to be independent. That is all against each other feelings. It's just what are you doing to yourself? You know, I don't understand that. But that's purely the bad part of the world. And I spoke to a lot of women sometimes about their topic. It's like, no, if I have a man who can do this and me, I will never do any of these things. So I'm trying to show it now as a veil. Okay, let me step back a moment. Women are being this way because there's not enough good men. Okay, let me show men how to become good men so we have better men out there so they can have better women out there.
Good. It's good you made this transition because now we spoke a lot about women, but I think the underlying issue are actually men.
Yes.
So where have men over the course of the past maybe 5 or 10 or 20 years, where did men slack off for us to end up with feminism and all those abominations of society, which are just crazy?
Life became too easy, number one. So everything became more accessible. So we have this illusion, the wheel of choice, that we should always just like swipe right, left, or DM somebody, or pick somebody to be in online. So it took away that part of the emotion self. Secondly, I think when women said that we don't want to have body ourselves, fine, go and do it. Let's have it for me. So that if they demand something, and we give it to them, and now both are miserable. Both are very miserable like that. You have a lot of men who are sexless, and you have a lot of women who are single. A lot.
Yes.
Way too many.
So what can men do to actually start reversing that effect? Or do you think it's maybe too late to even, try doing this?
I think I will use this interesting analogy. I call it the 4 H's. H. Okay? So first of all, you need to have hunger. That hunger towards becoming a better man, a better person, work for someone. And hard work. Because you cannot have anything in life worthwhile that had on the hard work, consistently working hard and actually do what you do. And having high standards. Because people have no standards anymore. No standards, so they have nothing. Having high standards in a sense like, so if I think I'm going to make $100,000, no, I'm going to hire somebody and get paid for that. Think a bit higher, and 4th H is holistic growth. And what I mean by that is basically being able to grow in multiple levels, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, physically. Grow yourself consistently. This is a way to grow yourself. And that's my vision of the 4 H's.
Yes, that's very interesting. So what is a tangible step in order for a man to come out of his comfort zone to actually start growing? Because, the problem which I see with many people is they are stuck in one place right now. And then they hear, okay, you have to do this and grow here. But how do you actually take the very first step to get there?
Acceptance. So accept what happened, or very change. Whatever you had, what the hell you did before, accept it's that you can't change it. Accept what's going to happen is going to happen. The only control you have is now. It how you act to things. So accepting that when you messed up, you didn't do good, and now that to do better. That's the first step. And that's the hardest step.
Yeah, I agree 100% because the trend which I'm seeing is it's so easy for society, for governments, or, whoever you want to say is behind certain agendas. It's very easy for people to get fooled, but it's so difficult to wake them up and tell them, hey, you have been fooled.
Yeah.
Because, that would destroy a lot of their worldview. Right. So
100% I agree with you. That's a good point. It's easy to fool people, but it's harder to wake them up and then, hey, you're fooled.
Yeah. Do you think, because it's, there's so many different people out there, right? And there's some people listening, they can sense in their gut, yes, so these guys are talking about something which I can feel as well. And then you have those who are like completely actively, discounting everything which we are saying and discrediting every single point which you're making. Even if you go back and if you think about everything logically, there's a lot of truth in what we say. I'm not saying that what we discuss is the ultimate truth. There's always different.
It's one of the
layers. Right? Yeah, and it's only by discussing different opinions where you can actually uncover the truth. And do you think some people are just lost and you should not bother even trying to make an argument?
Yes or no? Because you cannot change people until they choose one change. Because again, the knowledge is always there. The information is always there. So I think a very important part is being able to communicate in a language, in a tone, a visual explanation of people might understand. Because I can't sit down and scream at somebody, you're doing wrong. Because they know they're doing right. A lot of people do not want to when they're doing that. They just want to be, and again, 95% of people are just lazy. I will give you exactly the steps, strategy, one by one, links, people, numbers, do that. They won't do it. I did it so many times. Like, I kept our way and okay, here's how you gotta do it, here's the steps, here's the context, here's the person, here's how you do it, here's how you gotta speak to them, here's the email draft. Send it. That happened. A big waste of my time.
And I think sometimes people are even more afraid of success than of failure.
Oh yeah.
Because what if it works, then you actually have to do something.
But that's the thing. People only see one part of the equation. What if I fail? Okay. What if you actually succeed? You know? It's like, what? It's like, but maybe it's like, yeah, but there is two sides of the equation. You might fail, but also you might succeed.
That's why I'm moving out of Europe.
Yeah.
Because and it's maybe a very stark transition. But you always have to think about what's the best case and what's the worst case. And if I'm still fine in the worst case scenario, then I might as well just try it, because what happens if the best case arises, right?
Worst case, you die. Otherwise, you're okay.
Yes. And
because everything else will come at you, guess what? You will figure it out. You will actually figure it out. Because guess what? You've been through a lot of pain in your life and you're still here. So I'm not sure, because we all have this experience of the worst life possible in our heads. It doesn't happen. You create all the scenarios before you sleep or before you go for this, and realistically now these things that never happened to you. It's actually easier. Because okay, you go to this day, guess what's the worst? We have to go to jail? Okay, go to jail. Another one. You come up. Or you have to pay all this fees and fines. Okay, fine. They'll figure out a way eventually. I remember once I had this very long debt for $1 million. And it's like, how do I pay that? I don't was making any money. Okay, fine. Let's go back to the guy who was the supplier. Let's renegotiate the payment plan. It went from 100,000 after a month. Hey, I can't do 100,000. Already pushing again. It's not 2,000. And I went again back and back every month till I ended up paying him 10,000. So let me pay you this 10,000. I know I'm paying you. You know I'm paying you. It might take longer, but it gives me enough space and a breather for me to be able to with more money for me to pay you faster. And then what happened? I ended up paying him only 50,000 for another 3 months, and then in month before I managed to pay him everything else. Because I had enough wiggle and enough cash flow for me to be able to maneuver things more.
yes. So there's never a one-way street in life where you are completely stuck and there's no more options.
But that's the whole thing. And I go back to our last podcast when we spoke about, education. It teaches us that there's only one solution for every problem, but in reality, there's multiple solutions.
I think
It was for every problem.
I think the education system also beats out the creativity out of you.
Absolutely.
And
problem solving with creativity.
exactly. And if you lose your creativity, then you're facing a certain problem, and then you go back to the school system. Okay, there has to be like that one single solution. Then you try that one thing and it fails. And then what?
And then, you're stuck.
Yes.
But that's what the difference between learning and losing is just stopping. If you continue going, you learn.
Yes.
To stop, you lose. Simple as that.
So when we spoke about men being the underlying issues or the underlying cause for many of the issues which we face in society today, how do you surround yourself with men who are not at that end of the continuum where they are causing the troubles in society, but you actually surround yourself with the men who are helping to raise up the other men as well, and indirectly or directly also curating a better reality for women?
I think your direct circle is extremely important, because you know which people around you that are up to no good, if it is with the bar or club or shisha or whatever nonsense you are up to. And that's who they are. They're going to be all business guys, and that's okay. But you need to understand and choose that, okay, is this the life you want to be? Or not? Why? Because seriously, if you just stop masjid and call people first, you'll be surprised how fast your life becomes peaceful. That's the first stage. Do that. And secondly, okay, but be conscious about who you want to spend time out with.
Mhm.
It's a very conscious position, Conscious about what words come out of your mouth, what thoughts comes in your head, where are you pitching them. Your set and setting are very important. Yeah, they will set as what mindset you can come in, and setting where you are. And the master we can't in the is to talk about this as fixed, and sitting is being a place where all this money is, and we have this energy.
Yes.
It's very important to have these two things very well consciously decided.
What do you think sitting here surrounded by all those luxury cars? What do those materialistic things mean to you?
Yes, material things. I had the phase of I had a bunch of those cars throughout my life. And the they were just material things, and they are not even something I want to aspire to anymore. In the beginning, I had the phase I wanted to last. Now I want Ferrari, I want this, and I worked so hard to get them, I got them. And then I realized that, okay, I was put in a space with other people that I thought they would have that energy for me to be in. And ultimately, it's like, no, it wasn't what I wanted. And I realized, okay, it's not things. It's the emotion. It's what I feel within myself that I feel content. Because like after a while, it's like you're not short of. You want to be as much as possible low-key. Because, being the peacock, it's dangerous. Because you'd be very easily hunted. So now I try to figure out how ways to not show, I'm that, I do things for myself. So the cars that I have now, they're cars that I enjoy driving. Not for me. Not for people. For me. I enjoy them. They're my own cars, my own custom cars. It's an emotion, it's a feeling that I drive them in a very specific way. I stopped spending much money on these beautiful pieces of machinery because it's only for that.
So we spoke about people who might be misguided by chasing materialistic things, which at the end of the day don't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
And to me, this is interesting because on your social media, there's no cars, there's no watches, there's nothing, right? And I think that's on purpose because
very consciously, intentionally done. Because again, the thing is this: people will go out of the way just to get that thing, that car, that G-Class whatever. You got that, but you wasted so much time and energy and resources to get that error, just to have that feeling and emotion to showcase for other people you don't even know or care about, just to showcase, hey, I have a status. Cool. Now what? What are you doing with that status? How are you changing the world? How are you changing people's lives? What is the value you bring to the world besides having a nice car? What is it? That's my whole thing. Like, okay, yes, I had that before. I did that. I'm talking from an experience because I'm not a guru. I'm a practitioner. So I only talk about things that I went through, experience that I experienced myself, or I have observed very closely.
Yes.
And again, I had that phase of going through that, childhood. I didn't know better. I know better now. Yes, when to spend putting, a million dirhams in the car, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I was like, because I took it out, sold the car, and put the money back in my business because that's what matters the most. People who want to work with me will work with me regardless. Because of my car, because of my watch, it's still, because of who I am and my energy.
Yes.
When you hire somebody, you hire them because of the CV or the resume. You hire them for their energy, what they can bring to you. Are they best work people? Are they hard working? Those are the way. That's the CV. CV just tell me where you work for. Story. That's who you are.
Now, I would like to double down on something you just said. You mentioned the status. How do you actually rise up in status? Because it can't be just materialistic things, because everyone can buy things, right? But the higher up you go in society, the less meaning all those expensive items have. So how can you actually differentiate yourself from other people when you go higher and higher up?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because for you, money is a commodity, right? It doesn't mean anything in there. So how when you hang out with other people, right, or when you're in business meetings, how do other people perceive you as a peer of similar status, or maybe even as someone who has higher status?
Understood. So they used to call it a showbiz. It's a show in the business. When I understood it very well, so I do still play that game. Because like you say, people would perceive you like they won't perceive you. People always see first and then taste. So
sometimes like I will have to play a game with them. Okay, fine. Here's an expensive shoes, here's an expensive watch. Let's just set their mind in that first setup. And then, okay, that's okay, you got that out of the way. But then when you talk, when you actually have substance, when you have the experience, have the wisdom, these things you can't buy. These things you only acquire in time and experience and freedoms. And that is something that is undeniable. You cannot just, fake it. No. You don't know if you fake it or not. People are smart enough to understand you're doing this or that. I think, and that's the thing about the process. Respect the process in general. You become a better individual, a better man, a better human.
So it's about coming into new rooms with very clean and genuine energy. And in order to achieve that, what do you do in your life to make sure that whenever you meet new people and whenever you are in new surroundings and you carry yourself, that people can already tell by the energy which you're bringing, that you're someone who is of purpose and has a lot of substance to him?
See, you can never fake energy. You can never fake that. You can fake everything. The way you look, the way you smell, the way everything, anything, the thing you can fake is your energy.
When we walk in a place and people are attracted to you because it's purely, it's a vibration from within inside yourself. And that only comes in because your level of confidence or self-worth is extremely high. And that, again, that comes from a lot of disciplines that I have in my life. Like I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't be in a place that is questionable, bad energy. If I don't like your energy, I don't even come to you.
Like before, a place of 40 people, 50 people, I've been in specific buckets because their energy is right. And then some other guys I speak with that person was, hey, have a good day, brother. Have a good day. Very sorry. I walk away. Respectfully, kindly, nice. I think it's very important to be kind for yourself and to others.
Yes. And I told this to you in private already, but to me, of course, the podcast which we had was super impressive to me, but what was the most impressive thing was your energy when we went out for dinner.
Yeah.
And I saw how the waiters and the staff of the restaurant was greeting you. Then I realized, shit, this guy is for real. Yeah. Because, you, and this is, I don't mean this in an offensive way, right? But you carry yourself in those interviews with a slight degree of arrogance. And I think you do it deliberately because it's more controversial, right? But once we've been out of the podcast and surrounded by, people which you could look at below you, right? Because they have a different place in society. I mean, I've never seen anyone who has been more respectful to the staff as you. And to me, that's really mind-blowing because you don't have to, or you're probably the person who is, at least from my personal surrounding, you're the person who's the farthest away from the people at the bottom, so to speak. But you're the guy who is the most humble, the most warm, the most forthcoming to these people.
Humility. Key word is humility.
Because again, just because I have some money or bad best with this, doesn't mean I'm better than you. We're all human. Like that day I was, out and somebody else said, like, why everybody loves you? It's like, I said, I'm going to ask her. And she told like Ahmed, he was like, he said, I get out of my way to say hi to you and smile to you. I get out of my way as being actually humility and be kind to you just because I can. Because like, what is wrong with being just actually genuinely rational? Like, I know everybody's name. I come and hug them. I give them high fives because I lose nothing by that. I really lose that because I know how it feels to be alone. I know how it feels to be working hard. Nobody even poke you and say hi. You doing okay? I know how I know that dark places in if I can just spark a bit of light in your life by a smile or just touching you and making sure, hey, you're here still. It's very important.
Yeah, I think the next time when we go out for dinner, we need to have a camera person filming everything because it's really unbelievable. People see you with the traditional outfit, right? And they have a certain perception, but it's really good to have that contrast because you can't always be the funny, loving guy, right? In business, that doesn't work. If you're the funny guy, then you just get fucked over.
Yeah, but but for me, like, I'm never that serious. For me, like, if I cannot have fun with you, I cannot work with you. Because again, for me, it's play. Money is a game. It's a game. It's play time. For me, it's very important. And this is playtime. It's fun time. It shouldn't be that serious. yes, there's certain part of business that are serious, but like in general, overall,
I try to have fun with everything I do and who I do with it.
because if it's not there, it's going to be, then I'll go back to that one step. Okay, I'm stressed. I am real trapped. Then I need to go out and do something to de-stress myself. So why? So I always take care of the root of the problem. So I always make sure that this root is done in the right way. So I don't have to be in the entry and back.
That's an extremely good point, because I know a lot of super successful people, but they are so serious
Yeah.
that they can't enjoy their business, their wealth. They can't even enjoy themselves because they approach business with like, they're almost strangely.
Yeah. I get, but that's the thing. Like I learned this very early because again, I had in my circle people who thought I asked. I have in my business advisors that tells me this is how we do this, how we do this, and that only being able to be coachable and learn these things got me where I am. Being able to delegate a lot of things out to my,
my staff is also got me where I am now. Because I can never do this myself. So it's very big, it's very a lot of things to be done.
And you mentioned a little bit before that you need to be capable. And again, I know you're humble, right? But you outlined this a little bit earlier. But how do you ensure that you're humble in the right situations? Because there might be some situations, especially when you're trying to break off the system, where others will try to make you feel that you are in the wrong. And then you have to persist that, no, I'm right, I know what I'm doing, I have to do this. But then you also have to be humble enough to be able to ask for help and also ask the right people.
Yeah. See, there's so much layers here. So I have a very strong intuition and very good feeling about things. So in general, I have a very good compass towards, this is a worst layover. But me being able to have a trustworthy team now under me, with me, the more at the better with the good, and they're in the payroll, and they ultimately their main goal is to make sure that I do good. There's no hidden agenda, all these things with them. So having that is very, very, very crucial for me to become where I am.
And actually, how do you attract those people?
I think one of the best ways is referrals. Referrals have been the best way forward. Like, I know you and we have a relationship. So you know who I am, what I want. And then you refer me with somebody else, and that somebody else could be potentially somebody that I do something else for.
So it's all about energy, because if your vibe attracts your tribe. So I don't do Stephen. Hey, do you know somebody that does this? Yes, okay, fine. Let's get into that. So I know people in a lot of industries, and actually with a new industry or your circuit, what you have that is this. And usually, most of the time, you have something.
And how do you know when to ignore someone's advice?
That's a very one. I usually take nobody's opinion. I don't care about nobody's opinion whatsoever. I never did, never will.
But I always listen, and I see that I always listen first. Okay, interesting idea. Let's go forward. Because you can filter bullshit quickly. And I'm not gonna say somebody who never did.
Okay, please elaborate on this, because it's something it's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
There's so many people who never did it, and they will tell you exactly how you should do it.
You know what pisses me off when somebody is like, you go to a course to learn entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is something you learn in a book. It's a lifestyle. You go through all these failures and sleepless nights. There's no course to do that. So when somebody comes to me, you understand my point, I cannot influence somebody who never did this, tell me about this. Or I had the same idea of what you were doing in our blog 10 years ago. Cool. True story.
But I did it. There's the most abundant thing out there in the world is ideas. Everybody have an idea about something. Everybody have an opinion about something. Because it's free Wi-Fi, everybody have a smartphone, everybody think their opinion matters. Likes. It's always funny, I don't get the vibe, but it's always funny to me when somebody comes in, throw at you this perception, or as you are this, and they giving you this hate, and and they talking to me from the basement or sharing about I'm not living where I'm living. It's like, what is so wrong with that you have to get out of your way and give me this long speech about how shit I am. I got nothing. I usually give them a like. Yeah, I give them a like or give them a thumbs up. And they go, oh, this is passive aggressive. It's like, okay, cool. And it's like, what do you want me to do?
You know, you gotta give me your opinion regardless. You give me love, I will always give it back to you. You're inspired, I always give you a 50 seconds reply to you and give you more, you know, of my time. Because, you know, I'm a fair believer. Most people ultimately they're good and ultimately just want to be seen and they want to be heard. You know, and if you give them that small, I've seen your comment or your DM and I replied to you, that means the world for them. And for me, that is the level of compassion and empathy and humanity I want to give out.
Do you think this is something which you see also more in the society in Dubai, whereas in other societies, especially in the Western world, people are more distanced? They don't, you know, especially because the gap between rich and poor is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So I feel like the people at the top, they don't really even want to lift up the people at the bottom. I think they feel quite comfortable with the gap getting greater and greater and greater, and they just isolate themselves more and more and more, and then a lot of people just get left behind, especially people with pure intentions, with a lot of potential. No one has the intention to actually give them the tools to break out of the bottom hole.
But this is what we do when me and you do it now. You know, like we asked me to come and mentor. I can't have no talk. So the only thing I can do is either do a lot of these things. So perhaps it'll be 30 seconds or a minute that in my conversation with you can spark or trigger somebody's mindset or process of thought to become different or not quit about something they will grow and act. Maybe do a more of a bigger groups and so on and so on, but I can't do one by one. So all I could do, I mean, I would never throw at you money, but I can give you skill sets and mindset and strategies that will teach you much more. Because you can give you fish, we'll teach you how to fish. You know, and I'll teach you how to fish and give you fish.
Yeah, the funny thing is, most people would prefer the money instead of the tools.
Yeah, exactly. And that's for me, it's like, no, because you know what? Because
when I was stand up, nobody gave me money. Nobody gave me time, nobody gave me nothing. To understand what's the value of each one of them. So somebody give me, I know half the money, but I'm not going to throw it at you. Because now I'm not empowering you, I'm enabling you with that. You know, there was one time that I had a friend that, you know, asked for $1,000. I said, why? What happened? He lost all his money. I said, why? Oh, I cannot have the best to pay and so on. That sure, anything I can do for you. I didn't give him the money. Even though I had to, I didn't, because there was a reason behind that. I just wanted to see how much he's going to ask. Because I want him not to be enabled. A week later, I saw him still active against social media. I was like, are you okay now? Yeah, I managed to find 2 jobs and I made my opinions objectified. Send me your wife. I said, it doesn't work. So why do you do it now? It's like, because before I give it to you, we'll be enabled. We think anytime you have life to throw out the shit, we're going to put your hand out. But now, because you know that you can do this hustle, now I know you wait for this.
Yeah, that's the thing which we mentioned a bit earlier about the education system, right? If you're backed into a corner, if you get really creative, you will always find a way out. But if you get backed into a corner, then you make it dependent on external factors or on outside help for you to let go of all your creativity, and then you play the victim. That's not the people you want to support, right?
No. Let's just see, like, you know, I would say limitation only gives you creation. So you are limited in the corner, you should be able to be creative more.
Yes. Oh, that's an extremely good point. You know, when I started my very first business, I didn't have any safety net. I dropped out of university, and I realized having no plan A, having no plan B or plan C, that's the reason which made me successful.
Exactly. Having a safety net is the worst thing ever happens to you. But no, because having a safety net will make you lazy. It won't make you hungry. Having no safety net will make you, okay, we have plan A, we're going to go out, we're going to figure it out, we're going to find a way, it's going to happen to us. But having a plan B, plan B and having other stuff, it can always distract the client. For example, we are out concept now, right? If you can see, it's a big windshield and it's a small mirror. You only go forward. That mirror is show you when to pass. So just keep going at it. You cannot drive a car and look this way or this way. You got flash. That's the only thing I focus. You gotta focus at where you're going. You can't be driving this way and looking right all the time. You will crash.
Yes.
And that's what happens. I'll get a job and then do this. No. Either you go focus, get that done, hustle your ass off and get it done or not.
The biggest excuse most people have is they say, once I have this and this much money, then I will quit my job and then I will do it. But the problem is, first of all, it's just an excuse to not to do it now, right? And then if they actually achieve having X amount of money, then they think, okay, now I can relax. I don't have to push too hard. Now I can give it a shot, but it's not a must. It has to be your duty to succeed. There cannot be any, backups.
And like, pisses me off, people are always like, I'm gonna build my empire. I'm gonna be a millionaire next year. It's like, okay, you just failed before you even start. Because your only goal was the picture. That's it. I want this hard, but be left, understand the process. You would fail. You're not even right. You're hating me. I'm not hating. I'm just being realistic. I didn't know I was making this much money until maybe it was I spoke about last time, 57 months. Days off. That's when I realized, there is all these zeros in my account. I didn't even know that it existed. Because I was never looking at it.
Yes.
Because I was just focused about let's do this, and this. You just be good at what you want to do. Like either you make money for something you're passionate about, something you know so much about, or opportunity. Like I know guys who are multimillionaires and their only thing they do is one thing: they sell donuts. And the guys who have mansions, they sell donuts. What donuts? Or street life, boring businesses. But that's the whole thing. Just figure out that opportunity where it is and make it happen.
If there was only one meal if there was only one meal you could eat for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
This is a hard one. I think a hard one. There's something called shisha sour that we had together. Remember that restaurant upstairs?
Yes.
Three first, that chicken.
Oh yes,
That one.
yeah. I think I could live on that.
That's a good one. It's a very good.
Yeah, okay. Amazing.
That's one.
And you gave me a couple of good places to go to eat too, right?
Always fun. Yeah.
Tell me more about it. And again, the last comments on the TikTok which went viral were, you look so young. Your skincare is god level.
I do nothing. It's okay. First of all, I don't have any poisons in me, so I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't consume negative thoughts or negative people around me. So that's the first layer. I drink so much water. I drink like alkaline water, literally, between 3 to 6 years every single day.
Wow.
I never had a facial, never had a pedicure in my life. I never had. I don't have creams in my house. Nothing. Just normal shower gels. That's it. I think it's an energy within that if you pure from inside, it's gonna show on your skin. 41 years old. So I think that's purely it. Nothing else. Nothing crazy.
And I think that's not just true for yourself, but maybe you've noticed this as well. If you find the right woman for you to be a part of your life, you can see the same, flourishing of her femininity in the same way, right? But she just, like, you're almost reversing aging. She's becoming more and more beautiful because now the energy is just much more pure than...
Nothing is better than the feminine energy. If you have a lot of women around you, it's the most beautiful, most powerful, most amazing thing ever. Like, I'm never against that. It just lately, it's a very hard minefield of weird humans out there that they have no idea how it's supposed to work, and they're just losing the whole thing. They think because, the level of entitlement, they think they're entitled for things that just because they exist and as a female, it's like, wow. It's like, no, it's more than just you exist and looking good. It's everything else. And it's like, how agreeable, how supportive, how nurturing, how appealing you are. You walk up the room with me, like what energy you bring in the room.
Yeah.
So other women, other people, they know how classy you are. Or all this other stuff, how you touch me, how you talk to me, how you talk to me is very important. Some way you say it is how you say it.
Yes, yeah, because the way of talking is just another way to transmit your energy.
Exactly. So these are a list of things that are very basic, to be honest, but nobody's doing it. There's few people do it, but not anymore.
Yeah, and no one talks about the responsibilities of man and woman in a relationship. It's assumed that both have the same responsibilities, but that it's impossible to work out because just by nature, women have the gift of being able to give life, right? And men just can't. And
They're more nurturing, yeah. They have, and again, like women can give you a level of stability that is unheard of. But again, like, a rich man's gonna be rich regardless. You have a lower level. So I was all behind every great man's woman. Maybe, it's gonna be very controversial. But because I know a lot of guys, but also I know a lot of men, friends of mine, who were nobodies, and they have a lot of women, and they made them believe in themselves in a way that they became much better. And I know guys who were really successful men in their life, and they have a very hard woman, and they lost track of everything. And the energy became diverted everywhere else, and they lost it all. This all. So yeah, there is parts of this, but you as a man, you need to be able to control that.
yes, I mean, there's even billionaires who are oppressed by their women.
Yeah, or it's just very
Absolutely crazy, but so some people have their lives dictated by women, and you would think that they are powerful people. They achieved so much in all other areas of their lives, but then they have one toxic person in their life who's literally mentally completely deteriorated.
Yes, that's the difference between intelligence and emotional intelligence. Because men in general, we are very good single taskers. So you have a lot of guys who are very good in their single task, and that's it. But they everything is like capital they have to take care of.
Yes,
Because they never took the time in their life to either understand, learn, accept, and walk this through.
okay, let's continue with the funny questions. Go ahead. What historical figure would you take out for dinner?
Take after dinner, wow. Actually, just the one. Prophet Ahmed.
What would you ask him?
Oh, so many days. Just being there is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the best compliment you've ever gotten?
Oh. Interesting question, actually. Because I get different ones, but what's the best thing?
You get too many. Maybe too humble.
No, because which ones because again, it's not the compliment, it's how it's been delivered to me and by who. Because you get to go, right, you look good, okay, cool. Well, yeah. Oh, it's I think I trust you is a very big one.
Yeah, that's a good one. What do people misunderstand about you most?
Everything. They think I'm arrogant, I'm cocky. No, I'm just confident. And I'm not gonna basically come down because you could think bigger of yourself.
Yeah.
I'll work the ass off to be who I am right now. So I'm gonna come down because we're never ambitious and never working hard like I am. Yes, I'm nice, I'm happy with it, but I have also extreme confidence because I am who I am.
I think it's also quite dangerous to start censoring yourself just for the sake of someone else's sensitivity.
Yeah, I cannot do that. Because again, this is a journey of a man who went through all this hell and violence to become who I am. So it's very important we maintain and retain that honesty to myself.
Good. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Make people happy. That's very important. Because it's not things, it's emotions. And I think the biggest emotion that represents people that this guy made me smile. Was happy.
And I think it's a good way to leave an imprint on the world, where you can actually, because even, I don't know what your belief system is, but even if you die, the energy is not going to just disappear, right? So you can pretty much live on throughout the
Because I don't want to be noticed, I want to be remembered. And you will be remembered not by, hey, I had these cars, no, by how you make people feel.
Yeah. At the end of the day, everything will turn to dust.
Yeah.
All emotions are going to keep circulating, and people don't care. Well, this is a very interesting one where I would like to get your opinion on. What do you think the world will look like in 5 years? And maybe you can differentiate between where you exactly.
Yeah. I think some societies will cease to exist, especially in the West. There's no way they will keep going the way they were going and become consistent. There's no way that. I believe this part of the world, the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, is going to be the center of everything. It's going to be so advanced and so up there that it's going to be unbelievable. I think so. And I think parts of the West can cease to exist. Because systems are failing, humanity is failing, we're better than.
And what do you think about the situation? Well, I don't even want to mention the countries, but what do you think about the general political situation and the likelihood of war between certain countries?
War is gonna be, see again, now war became more of a business.
Before it was a principle thing, now it became more of a business. So we're all gonna be always there as the planet is. There's so much elite making medical network. You know, from the medical stuff, from the NGOs, from the war, from the weapons, from everything making money. So it's interesting.
What do you think about the monetary system then? Because the monetary system is closely tied to the intentions of wanting to wage war continuously, to put certain countries in debt, potentially take over control and so on. Do you think the CBDCs are going to be a good thing for certain societies? Do you think Dubai will maybe eventually have their own, or the UAE will eventually have their own currency on the blockchain or a centralized currency?
Yeah, because that's the whole thing. Like, like crypto when it came in the beginning was supposed to be decentralized. And now it's going back to be centralized, but controls you know where the money goes also. So it's basically a same system, but it's just more controlled by that.
I mean, I believe in crypto very much. I know the should behind it is a very good way to move things back and forth. It's easier to do things with it. But yeah, I think it's going to be inevitable. It's going to happen there.
This tokenized government money is going to be there regardless. Very soon.
Yeah.
This year, most probably.
This year?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, things are moving fast, and you have the banks, you have governments. I think they saw what crypto could do, and then they found the best possible way for them to seize that power before it is out of their reach.
Yes.
And that's why you see now a huge shift and a huge power grab. And once that's seized, I think it will be really difficult to even break out of the systems in the West.
Definitely.
And so I spoke to a lot of successful people who feel like they are oppressed and stuck in the West for multiple reasons. You have relationships and potential lawsuits and some really weird laws where even if you lead a normal relationship, you could get sued at any point in time.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of you have the taxes and just in general regulations and guidelines which are not really beneficial for either being rich or being an entrepreneur.
Yes.
So for someone who would come into the UAE and potentially into Dubai to set up a base here, to start living here, what advice would you give them? Do you think this is a sound decision to make? Do you think you need to have a certain net worth before you can consider Dubai to make your home?
Interesting net worth part in the end. Dubai have so much layers like an onion. So you can have, an amazing there meal meal, a potato and a dessert, then drink in the end, nice juice for under half dirhams, or you can have coffee for that money. So it depends where do you want to exist in which layer.
Yes.
There's so much temptations and so much things that are done in the city that is very hard to just be there. So we would be very rooted in what we are and understand there's different lanes in the street. So that's a very interesting part of that equation. Dubai, I think, between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, UAE in general, life is very cheap. In general, the airspace and the is very, very, very cheap. Banking is straightforward. Safety, lifestyle, you're central. So you can live in Dubai like 7 months of the year, and then the months you can always travel, Far East, Eastern Europe, Middle East as well, so you can travel a lot. It's pretty cheap. And ultimately, it's about you, your level of hustle. Because money is there. It's on you to get up and get it done. That's it. You can make money anywhere in the world. It's about you as a person, how much hustling time is out of it.
What I noticed when I came initially I came from Europe to Dubai, but I also have been in the US for quite a long time. The first impression which I had when I came here was, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here. And there's the opportunities which you have in Dubai, they are at a different scale than the opportunities you might have in Europe or even the opportunities in the US. I think in the US you still have some degree of freedom of what you want to pursue, but the amount of influence and money which is flowing to Dubai, just to me, there's no comparison.
Because Dubai is very central. So what happens here, they have a lot of very powerful, strong, big events. So let's say, like the Arab travel market, ATM. Okay, it's one of the biggest travel events in the world. 24 halls full of all the operators and hotels. You can walk around there. You can be any industry. You can make so much money. You can be an influencer. You can work there and make money. get a free deals from the hotels. You can be a supplier every year. I go there, make a couple of names, just walk around for a couple of hours in the exhibition, because you find everybody in the industry, every director, every owner, every GM in one place. So you have access to human assets anywhere in the world. Everywhere someone, you have to send an email, go to the offices. Here you have them all one place. So it's a very amazing stock. So access to people is much, much faster here.
Because when it was in people's pockets.
Yes, and I also think, the safety aspect is really something which you have to stress very, very forcefully, because, I have the same conversation with different people, and some people tell me, I'm just fine in London, I can take care of myself. Yeah, that might be true, but other people appreciate a safe environment, so they can let go of all the attention you have to pay to staying safe, and they can come here and not worry about the, petty crimes. They can just conduct business and be professional.
I had one of my friends who moved from Spain earlier last year. And the first 3-4 months, he was really not enjoying himself here. The reason is this, because in Spain, we have bodyguards, security. You have to have the route set up before, have a gun with him, and so on and so on. He's already had so much kinetic energy been wasted towards safety and security. So he comes here, nothing. Just quiet, just peaceful. There's no action anymore. And he felt out of space. Till afterwards, okay, brother, this is how it's gonna be. It's what we gotta do in that extra energy. And then eventually, he went back to Spain, sold everything, no more. Because they said, walking out, never have to have a concealed weapon on me. Don't have to have security on me. So that's huge energy being saved. I don't have to worry about somebody behind me. If I have a friend just sold engines from Chicago, the black skin, and it's like they don't have to worry about any more racism anymore, because people don't care.
Yeah,
we don't care what color you are, what we don't care about it. These things that exist here.
Yeah,
and that's a very big part of it. Yeah,
well, it's absolutely liberating to be able to walk the streets without having to worry about your watch, or you can just call an Uber for your girlfriend. You don't have to worry about her getting home safe.
Exactly, it's done. Yeah. We don't have these things here. We don't understand it anymore.
And to me, it was I was walking the streets, and then I thought, wow, I'm actually not aware of my surroundings all of the time.
Just walking,
watching my bag, or watching you just forget about all the energy you're normally exerting.
Experiencing them.
Exactly.
Experiencing life differently.
Yes.
We don't have to, we don't have to worry, this guy's behind me, and when this guy is kidnapping me, is happened to me. All this, again, with image that you wasted on that is not anymore there.
Yeah, because the problem I have with the land of the free in the US is, okay, you're free, but you're, depending on where you are, in danger literally all of the time. Even in Beverly Hills, there's during daylight times, crimes happening right on the street.
Robberies happening with daylight.
Exactly. And have the stuff here.
And here, at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., I can walk the streets, can wear a watch.
Yeah. I can. She can walk. She can be 1 and 4 in the morning.
Nobody that stop her. Maybe just ask her, okay, they help, and that's it.
Yeah.
But that is the beauty of this, This is why I say every day, this monarchy works.
Yes.
But you have to have democracy is also okay. And then what?
Everything has been handed to me. You have an amazing healthcare. It costs a fraction of the pay in the States, and with much better services.
Safety, the lifestyle, all the restaurants, the malls. It's just a whole list of things,
Yes. And the success of Dubai speaks for itself.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody wants to be in Dubai.
Correct. Yeah. And I'm very much looking forward to spending more time here. Spending more time with you. And unfortunately, I have to say, since you took me out to dinner and since you recommended a couple of restaurants, I'm not looking back to travel anywhere else, because now my standards are so high.
Now you know what food should taste like.
Exactly. And every time I go somewhere else, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, it's not the right one. Yeah. But that's the thing. Good food doesn't have to be expensive.
Yes.
That's all. I don't go anywhere fancy and schmancy. I don't need it. It's the fancy. It's not being cheap. It's why am I paying so much money for average food? But I work at places family-owned, boutique restaurant, and it's just amazing food. That's for me, it's an experience with the people, not just going there. For me, I have this thing also, I rather go to a boutique restaurant that I know the owner and his brothers are working there. I want to tip them, then go to a fancy restaurant. I'm already paying 10 times the bill and tip them for what I look good. No,
you know,
I said,
you said this on the first podcast, and since then I stopped tipping in the expensive restaurants
it's like
because you're right.
already been ripped off already.
Yeah.
You already rip people off. You know, paying all this much money for like an average steak.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a place, okay, these people that literally are afraid of food, immediately the place has changed. They are attentive, they're there, the quality is good. There's a family.
Yes.
That is more worthwhile giving tips for than anybody else.
Yeah. Ahmed, I have to thank you once again. You're really an example of humility, being humble, and being generous. And I think the definition of being masculine is being capable, being dangerous, but also being humble and generous.
Because you have to have both of them, you know, the softness that creates. Because again, you know, I went through hell and violence to become this peaceful. So I understand that emotion. So I don't have to be that person because you need to be kind to others because that is very simple.
One thing which I also still remember is either you're going to be a G
Already.
a gentleman or a gangster. Yeah.
I'm either a gentleman or a gangster. It's not between. Yeah.
I love the quote.
Yeah, it's easy one there. I love it.
All right, Ahmed, thank you once again. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you very much.